Hello and welcome to Charity's Treasures. Today is Definition Tuesday continued. A confession is needed to bring down the powers that be. Yesterday, I told you I was going to share a story. This story, after I share the story, I will talk to you about a confession, about why a confession is needed in the Charlie Kirk case. I will talk about coalitions that must be formed before the coming of Christ. Okay, this story is in the Book of Mormon, Helaman chapter 8 and 9, Nephi and the chief judge. I'm going to paraphrase this story, but on my Substack, I will include all the verses of the actual scripture. They're just really long, and if I read them and then explained them, it would take a lot of time. So I'm just going to paraphrase the story, but you can go on there and read all the scriptures yourself. Okay, let's see. Okay, so in the Book of Mormon, there was a prophet named Nephi. There's a few prophets named Nephi, but this was one of them. So I don't want you to get confused with other Nephis in the Book of Mormon, but there was a prophet named Nephi, and he was attempting to get this people in a certain area to repent. He was telling them that there was corruption in their land and that there was a secret band of robbers that had formed. If you know anything about the Book of Mormon, you would know about this band of robbers. The name of this band was Gadianton. It was formed by a man named Gadianton. His secret works were like that of Cain. These secret works went forth throughout all of the stories in the Book of Mormon. Whenever there was evil that came upon the people, it was mostly because of these secret combinations. When there was peace in the land in the Book of Mormon, it seemed that this band would form and raise up. They would make secret plans and secret oaths to take over governments so they could be in control of the people in that land. That they eventually would try to infiltrate governments with their evil designs. Nephi traveled to a land where this was happening. He was attempting to get these people to see their wickedness and was attempting to have them repent. At this time, the leader of this place was called the chief judge. Now, this chief judge was murdered one day. He got murdered. No one knew that he was yet murdered. But Nephi, the prophet, told the people he was preaching to that their chief judge was now murdered. So Nephi was at this place. It became known as the Garden of Nephi. So when he was telling the people were like, what? Our chief judge is murdered? What? No one knew because nothing was being said about the chief judge being murdered. But Nephi's like, your chief judge is murdered. And they're like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? All these people that were listening to Nephi in this garden preach about God and God's ways, they were listening to him and they're all like, okay, there was these 5 guys there and they're like, we're going to go check to see if he's actually murdered. And if he is, we will believe everything you've said about God and our wickedness. So, there were 5 of these men who were in this group of people listening to Nephi in Nephi's garden, and they went straightway to the judgment seat. When they arrived at the judgment seat, they saw that the chief judge was murdered, and he was lying in his own blood. Now, Nephi told them before the 5 guys saw this, that the chief judge was murdered by his brother, because his brother wanted to take over the judgment seat. These 5 men that went, when they were going to see if the chief judge was murdered, they were like, they were talking amongst themselves before they arrived at the judgment seat, and they were saying, well, we don't really believe this guy Nephi and all the things that he's saying, but if he's right about this, then he's going to be right about everything else, right? They're like, that makes sense, right? They determined that this would be the case before they arrived. They would believe Nephi if this judge was actually dead. When they reached the judgment seat and found the judge dead, they realized that everything he said was true. These 5 men were so astonished that this was all true. Not only was the chief judge dead, but they felt that what Nephi was saying was true. They fell to the earth. They were overwhelmed at all this information and that all of these things were true. Before these 5 men arrived, the servants of the judge, who had seen the judge not be murdered, but they had seen that he was dead, they went out and told the people, while Nephi was talking to this group of people, the servants of the chief judge were like telling this other group of people, our judge is dead. But these two groups did not interact at that point. So they didn't know about this group that Nephi was teaching and listening to preach about about God and about the chief judge being dead. So when they went back to where the chief judge was, these servants of the chief judge, they went back to where the chief judge was after they had told some people about his death. They saw these 5 men who were fallen to the earth that were in communication at the Garden of Nephi. And they didn't know what to do. They're like, who are these 5 people? The servants of the judge, assuming that these 5 men were the ones who killed the judge, they decided to put them in prison. And the next day, all the people in the land gathered to mourn and fast because the chief judge was going to be buried. Some of the judges who were listening to Nephi, so when Nephi was in the garden, there were some judges, some other judges, this was the chief judge, but there were some other judges that were listening to Nephi in the garden. And they knew that these 5 men left the garden to go see if the chief judge was dead, but they had never seen them afterwards. And they didn't question them or anything. So they all went to this burial. These judges that were at the Garden of Nephi and these other people and judges that the servants told about the 5 men and about the chief judge being killed. So they were all at this burial and they're all intermingling. And so the people the judges that were listening to Nephi were like, where were the 5 men that went to go see if the chief judge was dead? Whatever happened to them? Did they find him dead? The way that Nephi told them that they would find him dead. Okay. And the authorities were like, we don't know what you're talking about. The other people that were in this other group that didn't hear Nephi and his message were like, we don't know what you're talking about. The only thing we know that there was 5 murderers who were at where the chief judge was dead. And so we put them in prison. So they're at this burial and these groups of people are now intermingling. They're finding out new information. They're like, oh, we didn't know this. We didn't know that because we weren't at the same place at the same time. Okay, so they're like, oh, we put these people in prison. There were 5. I don't know if it's the same 5 that you know about, but there were 5 and we put them in prison. So the other judges were like, well, bring these 5 to us so we can see what's going on with them. The other judges inquired of these 5, and the 5 men they let him talk to these judges, and they told the judges all that happened. We were with Nephi, we saw him lying in his blood, and he was dead. And so they're saying everything that Nephi said was true. They said, we saw him dead after leaving the garden. We fell to the earth, and after we were recovered from our astonishment, they cast us into prison. The 5 men told these judges that they don't know who killed the chief judge. They're like, we came, but he was already dead. We don't know who killed him. And the servants of the chief judge didn't know who killed him either. They were just curious because of what Nephi was saying. Okay, and they just wanted to know if it was true. Then the judges are like, okay, so Nephi must be in cahoots with the person who killed the judge. They said Nephi was saying all of this stuff to convert us. So this was the judges that were at the Garden of Nephi. And they're like, this was all just a plan. He sent the 5 and he knew it was what they were gonna see because he was in with it with this murderer. And they were in this murder together. So they were saying, if we believe that the chief judge was dead because of his words, then Nephi would think that we would believe everything he was saying about God was true too. It was all a trick. And they're like, he just wanted us to make him believe. And he's actually helped the murderer kill the chief judge. They're like, he just wants to be great in the sight of the people. He wants to be recognized as a chosen prophet of God. So the 5 were set free because the judges didn't believe that they were the ones who killed the chief judge. Some of the judges So some of these judges after this brought Nephi to the judgment seat and bound him, and they were questioning him. They wanted to put Nephi to death because they thought he was in cahoots with the murderer. So they wanted to know who killed the chief judge. So they were like, Nephi, who committed this murder? You were involved in it, weren't you? And we want you to tell us the truth. And they're like, we're going to give you money if you tell us the truth, and we'll save your life. We won't kill you if you just tell us who killed the chief judge. Because obviously it wasn't Nephi, because he wasn't anywhere near the chief judge when the chief judge was killed. So they just wanted to know what agreement he had with the murderer. Nephi looked at them and he said, "You're fools." He was like, "You are blinded and you have hard hearts." He said, "How long will God suffer you that you shall sin?" He told them, "I did not agree with any man to kill the chief judge. God just wanted me to show you that I am his servant and you guys are living in wickedness." Nephi said to them, "I will show you another sign. Go to the house of the brother of the chief judge. Ask him if I had anything to do with the murder. Ask him if I was involved, and he will say no." Nephi said, "After he tells you that I had nothing to do with the murder, he will stand with fear, and he will not know what to say to you. He will act as if he was astonished and declare his innocence. After this happens, examine the brother of the chief judge. Look at him, look around him. After you examine him, you will find blood upon the skirts of his cloak. When you see this, you will ask him, 'Where did this blood come from? Is it the blood of your brother?' He shall tremble and shall look pale, as if death had come upon him. Then you will recognize and say to him, 'We see your fear and your paleness, which has come upon your face. So now we know that you are guilty.' Then greater fear shall come upon him, and he'll confess to you. And he will not deny that he murdered his brother. He will then tell you that I, Nephi, had nothing of the matter to do with it, save it be given me by the power of God. He will tell you I did not conspire with him. This will be evidence that I am an honest man." The judges went to the chief judge's brother's house, and everything that Nephi told them would happen, happened. Then the 5 men were set at liberty, and so was Nephi. The important part of this story is that the judges could tell by the chief judge's brother's emotions and expressions that he was guilty. The pressure the judges put on him when they questioned him and told him that the way he looked made him guilty, this led to the chief judge's brother's confession. It was too much for him to handle. He could not keep lying. He was caught. He was under extreme amount of pressure. So, Joseph of Egypt. This is another story. This year I talked about Joseph of Egypt in my Come Follow Me Substack. You can go there and check it out if you want. I talked about how when Joseph was in prison with the baker and the butler, he noticed their expressions and their emotions. He noticed that they were uneasy in the morning. He asked them, "Why are you uneasy?" He says to them, "I see your faces. You look worried. You look uneasy. What is wrong?" Because Joseph noticed their expressions and their faces and that something was making them uneasy, this gave the baker and the butler the opportunity to tell Joseph about their dreams. In this way, the baker and the butler confessed to Joseph about their dreams. This confession led to Joseph's eventual liberty and freedom in the house of Pharaoh. You cannot convict someone in today's world, right, because of their emotions or the way their expressions or body language are, but you can apply pressure on them when you notice these things. The pressure can lead to confessions. Now, the baker and the butler did not do anything bad, but because Joseph initiated the conversation, because he could see and notice something in their faces and in their body language, because he initiated the conversation and pressed them, they felt the need to confess their dreams. In the case of the chief judge's brother, he did do something evil, and because he was pressed and initiated the conversation by the other judges, he weakened and confessed to his crime. What is important about this message? Now, this is something that Charlie and I have been talking about this week. Everybody thinks TPUSA has bad actors, right? Most everybody. And that they're wearing masks of some sort. What Charlie is telling me to tell you is that the key to the downfall is to break down the bad actors at TPUSA. If their masks can be pulled off, then the dominoes will fall. Charlie is indicating to me that in order to not just get the information out there, but in order to have the power to take down these people that caused his death, you need a confession. The powers that be right now, you could give them all the true information that you're gathering, whether it be Baron Coleman, Candace Owens, whoever. You could give them all that information, but they're still the powers that be. You need more than that. And we're going to talk about this in the next few days and next week, how what we're missing in this thing. But there's too much information to do that today. But you need a confession. You might say a confession. Who would confess? Like, who's going to confess? There's a lot of bad actors. A lot of bad actors in this assassination. It seems like this would be impossible. An impossible reality for someone to confess. But with God, we understand that nothing is impossible. And this is one thing that we're missing that we're going to talk about. The baker and the butler confessed to Joseph. The brother confessed to murdering his other brother. The people they thought murdered the chief judge was free because they were obviously innocent. Nephi was freed. In this whole process of trying to find the person that will confess to whatever is going on to be confessed to, this is what you need to pay attention to when you're either talking to and about that person or you see that person online. Share videos over and over again until you understand who that person is. And then eventually, because of the pressure that is upon that person and because of your insight at recognizing the actions and the movements of that person, they will end up confessing to you and to the world. You know, it's like what you see yourself over and over again, and it just like gets into your mind and it just like infiltrates, and you're like, you can't stand it anymore. So you're like you're a kid and you want to confess to your parents or something. You just can't stand the guilt, so that's important. But okay, so what does Charlie want you to pay attention to specifically? What Charlie wants you to pay attention to is the town hall video, which Charlie conducted shortly before his death. This was designed by God to be available. He was talking to the young adults about their views on Israel, the Jewish people, and other things, right? Charlie and Andrew were the ones leading that interview. Charlie wants you to watch that video, and he wants you to focus on Andrew's body language and facial expressions. He wants you to be inspired by what you see. What kind of things come to your mind when you watch him? Watch the other groups, watch the other people in this group too. If everyone who is investigating this case watches this video over and over again, then correlates their findings with each other, because you guys all talk to each other, it will be interesting to find out what the results of that correlation is. And you don't need to specifically do it public at first, but just get together, form this coalition, talk to each other about what you see, come to a conclusion together. Charlie wants you to go so far as to find the people that were in that interview and ask them feelings and thoughts about Charlie and Andrew as they were talking to Charlie and Andrew. And if they talked to them after and before, get information about those conversations. You can do this together. You can collaborate together in this. You can yourselves, not publicly, but maybe even privately, gather these people with you guys and talk to them personally. Maybe interview the people that were in the discussion and ask them how they felt about the discussion. Ask them the feelings they got from Andrew and from Charlie and see if this coincides with anything that you felt while you were watching the interview. You'll be amazed at how much inspiration and revelation you will gain as you go through this process. So why not just tell us everything? Now, why wouldn't Charlie just tell me and you who are trying to figure this out everything? Because that's not how God works. God could do everything for us, but he uses us as human beings in his plan so we can grow and learn, and in the process form coalitions. A coalition must be formed in America, a coalition that is good, that is righteous, that has chosen people chosen from God, just like our founding fathers. I know Candace says that our founding fathers are part of this scam of America, but the church has talked about our founding fathers, and maybe there may be a little bit of truth to what she's saying, but at the same time, they were chosen by God to form this country. Whether she believes that or not, it is true. They formed a coalition and created America. America was created by God. I mean, we must believe that to some extent, right? I mean, whether you think people were crooked in the beginning or whatever, America was formed by God. We believe that. Before the coming of Christ, another coalition must be formed. We have the true Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which is God's church, but our church does not involve itself in politics for good reason. The church's responsibility is to bring peace to the world. And if they were involved in politics, it would be very difficult for them to travel throughout the world and build temples and create peaceful coalitions with other religions and with other organizations around the world and other governments. And it would be very difficult for them to help those coalitions and those people in those organizations if they were involved in politics. So that is not the church's role, to be involved in politics, although some people think they are involved. I'm going to set the record straight in the next weeks and months. But God does have a role for the people who are outside of the church, and that role needs to be integrated into our governments who are in charge of the people and these governments. We are told in the scriptures, especially the Book of Mormon, that there needs to be righteous governments. We need to choose righteous leaders. We have come to find that it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or Democrat. The current leaders are corrupt. We know that now, right? I haven't talked about it yet because I just don't have time to talk about everything that I have in my head, but that is an important part concerning Trump. And yes, I supported him, but there's a reason we were supposed to support him. I will talk about this in more detail later, but the reason, and just as an overview, is that he needed to get into office so we could see that the corruption is deeper than we thought. It was necessary for him to get in there for us to notice that there's just one government. There's not two, that this is something we need to fix. So anyways, that's a whole nother topic. I don't have time to go down right now, but I haven't, okay. So anyways, we need in America a new coalition, a coalition that can be checked and a coalition that is righteous. And now, right now, from what Charlie is telling me, is God is trying to form that coalition. And Charlie has a part to play on the other side in helping form this coalition. I believe that when he's not with me, he's with all the other people that are going to be part of that coalition. So I would say to you, pay attention if you feel like you're part of that coalition. Pray. Go to places where you can feel the Spirit and get revelation so you can hear God's voice. And hopefully, if God allows it, and you're spiritually in tune, you may also hear Charlie's voice. Okay, so Andrew Covet. Keep in mind that when Andrew gave people the text message that said or talked about Charlie deserting the Israel cause, that this text message was given out on purpose. Keep in mind that it's a possibility that Andrew knew after giving it to the government authorities that it would not be investigated. Keep in mind that right after he told Tucker and Candace that it was supposed to be them, well, it was supposed to be Candace, but that Tucker also needed to be aware that his life could be in danger, it was part of a plan that didn't quite work out the way they thought. They thought it would scare Tucker and Candace, and they knew that it wouldn't be investigated by the government authorities, so they felt safe in putting that information out there. But at the same time, Candace needed to see those text messages so she could be aware that if she doesn't shut up, then her life could be in danger. So there's alternative motives to that text message. It kind of backfired on them. But the whole purpose wasn't to actually have those text messages be proof so that there could be an extended investigation on the people of Israel government. That's not what it was about. No one could foresee that Candace would be sharing those text messages in the future. No one thought about the messages that she and Charlie exchanged, nor did they even think for a moment that any of those would be shared. They had no idea that Candace was going to share messages about Charlie. That's not something that came into their mind, these text messages between her and Charlie. It did not enter into their mind, ever. That wasn't even a rabbit hole that they tried to cover up because they didn't know it would exist. It really messed things up for them. And they didn't foresee the existence of that rabbit hole. How would they have known? They wouldn't know. They thought they were going to shut Candace up in the beginning. And so these text messages, they didn't even think that she had text messages of Charlie. They had it planned, but it didn't work as they planned, which usually happens in all evil designs. There was an alternative motive for those text messages being shared. Okay, money. A lot of people will say that other people are making money off of Charlie. Charlie wants the people that are fighting for him to know that he's glad you're making money. If you are spreading his word in the process and you're being prosperous in your life and you can support your families, especially the men that are trying to support their families and they're using his voice in the way that he would want it to be used and to exemplify his character and to help people understand about Christ and Christ's mission, which Charlie was on a mission for Christ, then he is happy you can be financially stable. He wants you to be prosperous. And if you follow his instructions that he's giving me as he's on the other side, you will be prosperous because you're listening to him. And if you listen to him, he's going to be an instrument in your hands. He wants you to be successful. He wants you to be able to support your families and have enough money for their safety and for every needful thing. He wants your wives to be at home with your children, if that's possible. All these people that are saying, oh, they're making money doing this or that, Charlie thinks of it as a blessing, that if in his name you can be prosperous when you're on the right path and you're choosing righteousness and you can use that money you're earning to continue that journey in that path and in the message that needs to be spread throughout the world so you can form these coalitions, he understands takes money and it makes him happy. Okay, so that's all I have for today. I hope someone can use that information. There's nothing I can do about that information, but there's a lot of people out there that are covering this case that can hopefully use that information. And I hope you believe that it's coming from Charlie, because you will be prosperous if you continue to listen to his voice and have him carry on his mission that he so desperately wants to do on the other side, because he wants to still be part of this earth life in this way. So much more information, so many things to talk about, but we can't talk about them all in one day. And so I just suppose that they will come out when those of you who are trying to help Charlie need to hear it. So I hope that you needed to hear this today, and I hope it gives you some ambition to further your role in this coalition that must be formed in America. Bye, everybody.